I met with Greg. He asked me, was I interested? I said, of course I'm here. I wouldn't have had dinner with you if I wasn't interested. And I'm waiting for them to make me an offer, I guess.
TNT NBA analyst Charles Barkley speaks on him being pursued by Live Golf.
If those dudes do something crazy at me, I had to listen. I mean, listen, and I'm not going to get on here and say it's not about the money. Of course it's about the money.
Barkley admits it. One of the lone voices to do so. However, here's where Chuck shows himself.
What's the criticism that hurts the most?
Oh, there's no criticism. I don't do with this selective prosecution about things, people, the public. You know, everybody picks and chooses. I just think it's funny they're more worried about civil rights in Saudi Arabia, a place 99.9% of the people in the United States have never been. And all of a sudden they're worried about civil rights in Saudi Arabia. That kind of gives me a chuckle. I said, you don't worry about civil rights of people here in the United States. But all of a sudden when guys start taking money, they're like, well, I'm worried about civil rights in Saudi Arabia. And that just makes me laugh. I said, why don't y'all get worried about civil rights here in the United States? Let's worry about that before we worry about what's going on in Saudi Arabia.
This is really, really important. Let's go back to what Charles initially said to open this up.
You know, everybody picks and chooses.
Right, so picking and choosing to Charles is bad. Got it. Then he says this.
And all of a sudden they're worried about civil rights in Saudi Arabia. That just makes me laugh. I said, why don't y'all get worried about civil rights here in the United States? Let's worry about that.
So what does he do? He picks and chooses.
I think the Saudis with 9/11 hits home with people.
Longtime sports media man Dan Patrick is pointing toward a story we covered previously when the Live Golf Tour hit the state of Oregon, and the families of those lost in the September 11th attacks protested the organization's arrival. Many leaders condemned the tour's presence.
9/11, where 15 of the 18 involved in 9/11 were Saudis.
Yeah.
That's the criticism.
But I don't think it's fair for them to pin all that on these golfers. That's not fair. I mean, our government still does business over there.
Wait. So let me see if I got this straight. Because a kooky, let's be honest, right-wing government from the world's perspective in this country does business in the places he listed, that makes it okay? Then he references this.
I mean, we can't even get a car in this country because all the chips are made in China.
Now, here's my thing. And he may or may not be shocked to hear this. In 2017, Ford announced their move to China instead of Mexico. It was, as AmericanManufacturing.org put it, a signal that U.S. automakers will look to China as a big part of their production strategy in the years ahead. Now, why exactly would they do this? Don't overthink it. Factory pay in China is much lower compared to the United States, and auto parts are also cheaper, partly because China's steep tariffs make it impossible for multinational manufacturers to compete in the Chinese market unless they produce in China. Follow me here. Take a wild guess where they're located.
Uyghurs mainly live here, in the Xinjiang province of northwestern China.
You heard correctly. And extensive reporting from news outlets around the globe have shown the camps the Uyghurs are in. Among the companies said to benefit from the forced labor are Apple, Sony, Nike, Volkswagen, BMW, and General Motors. The findings from an Australian think tank concluded there is mounting evidence that many Uyghurs are now being forced to work in factories within Xinjiang. This report reveals that Chinese factories outside Xinjiang are also sourcing Uyghur workers under a revived exploitative government-led labor transfer scheme. Some factories appear to be using Uyghur workers sent directly from re-education camps, or, if we're keeping it 100, concentration camps. In addition to the automakers mentioned above, Mercedes, Geely Auto, MG, Mitsubishi are listed as using suppliers employing Uyghur labor. Geely, BAIC Motor, and GM have ties to O-Film Technology, a manufacturer of camera modules and touchscreen components. High Broad Advanced Material claims Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, and Jaguar Land Rover as customers for its backlight modules and LCD components. China's foreign ministry rejected the claims, calling the report a smear and a product of U.S.-led anti-China propaganda. What I find troubling is the notion of we should only really care about human rights when it's here.
The notion that white cops are out there just killing black people, that's ridiculous. It's just flat out ridiculous.
I spent the day with the cops. The split-second decisions they have to make. I mean, we're talking split-second decisions. They can do 95% of things correct and 5% screw up, and we spend all our time talking to 5% screw up.
You said you rode with the police and you had a conversation with them, and it takes them only a split second to make a decision. Tell me why it took 15 to 20 minutes to beat my son to death. 15 officers. They did some horrific stuff to my child.
He spews nonsense to the families of victims to police brutality. Let's just call this all what it is, as Bomani Jones did on his podcast, The Right Time.
I just think the moral part has been interesting because a lot of these guys are just smart enough to take the money and shut up. Right? You take the money and shut up, you're going to wind up being okay. But you get Greg Norman and Phil Mickelson, and I think it was South African dude, Charles Schwartzel, I think it was him, just basically on the, hey man, all money dirty. Like that is basically the point that they're making from top to bottom is all money dirty, and this money is too much for me to pass up on. This is my question for you, Dominique. Do you want to be in debt to the Saudis? To the House of Saud? Because I don't.
I don't want them to know who I am.
He thought that copping to how bad people think they are and the bad things that they do, right? He thought that copping to that would make it okay. And instead, no, it made it worse.
He would tell the New York Post of his meeting with Greg Norman, listen, they are making up words like blood money and sports washing. By the way, no one made those up. They already existed. He doesn't like them because he doesn't like those words being attached to what he's doing, plain and simple. USA Today's Dan Wolken rebuked it. This is, of course, the very same argument authoritarian regimes all over the world use to justify their horrendous acts, but the absence of total moral purity in capitalism doesn't mean that all bad things are equally bad. It's merely a thin justification for choosing the most problematic option. Personally, as I've covered Charles Barkley many times now, on this channel, all I can think of is his belief system is capitalism one, and then wherever else human rights falls, it just does. And of course, with everything that capitalism breeds, if human rights gets in the way, one's got to give. And we know from a capitalist which one that is going to be. On this show, and on this network, it is a fairly simple belief system. No matter your geographical location, no matter who you are, human rights abuses and violations are human rights abuses and violations, and they should be called out immediately. If there is a violation because you are a woman who has the desire to drive, because you are trans and being persecuted, because you are gay and people in positions of power are using you as a political pawn / enemy to score cheap points, all because they don't believe that you have the right to love somebody. If you are executed for believing in anything but the one religion the government tells you to believe in, guess what? These things must be called out. As an abolitionist who believes that capitalism and human greed is part of the roots of the evil tree, he is barking up the wrong one. The whole notion of everybody's doing it is lame. And that's exactly what we are fighting against each and every day.